Mr. James Ward of Adobe Systems. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a technical evangelist for Flex at Adobe and focus on the Java and open source and enterprise software communities.
So, James, Flash Player 10 just shipped, and
Yeah,
we're all excited, but we want to know what that means for developers. So can you share with us what's there that we care
Yeah.
about and what we should be excited about?
yeah, definitely. So Flash Player 10, it's a huge leap for us who are building software using Flash as our platform. So a few key things that are in Flash Player 10 that are really going to affect developers. The first major one is effects. What we've done is we've created a new language called Pixelbender that allows developers to build in a more optimized language for doing essentially manipulating pixels, essentially.
So Pixelbender is a new programming language?
It is. It's a new programming language and toolkit for compiling that code into a different bytecode format, which really allows us to optimize just things that all they do is move pixels, essentially.
So if I'm a Flex developer today, am I learning Pixelbender here soon and writing my code in Pixelbender, or as part of my code?
You'll be writing part of your code. So the interesting thing about Pixelbender is it operates in 4 modes, and I don't remember all 4 of the modes, but essentially the way that I understand it is that 3 of the modes are for manipulating graphical things on the screen. So if I want to apply some cool effect to something on the screen, I can write that effect, how the pixels actually change in Pixelbender, and it'll happen much more efficiently than filters do today in Flash Player. So there's 3 different modes. I don't understand all the differences there, but there's a 4th mode that is, I think, really interesting to Flex developers for Pixelbender, and that's that you can just take a byte array and feed a byte array into Pixelbender, and Pixelbender can operate on a different thread, or by default operates on a different thread, and just processes numbers, essentially.
So you said it operates on a different thread. We're all kind of aware of the single-threadedness of Flash. So what does that mean?
That means that, so a lot of times in Flex applications, where you run into the problems of Flash Player being single-threaded are when you have to do heavy computational things. So let's say that you have a more optimized place to do those that's multi-threaded,
So is the Flash Player now multi-threaded, or is this just another thread?
It's been multi-threaded for a while, actually. So with Flash Player 9, I don't remember the exact release, we added actually doing rendering in multiple threads if you have multiple CPUs or cores available to you. Okay. So that's been in there for a while. So this is kind of another place where we can take advantage of doing things in a different thread, or even doing things on the GPU, so that you can do computations. And the great thing about being able to do these computations on a different thread is that then you're not locking the user interface while that computation is happening. So it's kind of a new area for Flex developers. You do have to learn a new language. You're not writing these in ActionScript.
So what does that language look like?
I think that it looks like assembly. I'm not totally sure. I haven't looked real deep into it, but it's essentially a very small language for mathematically making changes to bits. So if you have a byte array, you feed a byte array in, you run it through this thing, and what you get back comes back to your main application.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think this will be something that is pretty relevant for Flex developers, especially when they're running into places in their application where they're doing heavy amounts of processing of data on the client side.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be exciting. The next major feature that I think is relevant to Flex developers is 3D. So a lot of people are beginning to incorporate even just little bits of 3D into even business applications. So the most popular one is integrating like the Mac cover flow component that's been built a number of different times and ways in Flex. So now you can do that in a way that's actually natively doing the 3D transforms rather than doing it in ActionScript at a JITted level. It's now being done natively, and I think in some cases is even taking advantage of the GPU to do that. So
you kind of hit on that being though in the business arena. Do you think there's a ton of cases where people should be taking advantage of that kind of feature in Flex while building an enterprise application, or is that typically going to be more useful in a consumer-facing
I think it's useful in both. Probably more likely in the consumer space, but even in the business space, as we come up with more complex data visualizations and ways to look at our information and to really try to make our enterprise software feel more like our consumer software is what Oracle has done a lot with their sales.com
So it's
Flex application. They're trying to make it feel more like a consumer application so that the business users have a familiar way of interacting with it and just want to use the enterprise software.
So whether it's Oracle or somebody else, can you think of like an actual feature example you could give us so we can kind of start to think differently about where we might be able to take advantage of those?
Yeah, so think about if you're looking through a giant group of products or something like that, you're looking through a list of things. If you can visualize that in a 3D way, you're probably much more easily going to be able to easily navigate through and find what you need rather than looking at things in 2D. Because in 2D, you essentially have lists and tiles, and that's it.
Yeah.
And in a 3D world, it opens up a whole lot of other opportunities for how you visualize things. The cover flow is just one example that I think is used pretty often because it really does help you to visualize a large amount of data in an easier way.
So you've told us about pixel bending and 3D.
Yeah.
What else are we looking forward to?
The next major thing for developers is the new text engine that's gone into Flash Player 10. So Flash Player 10 is actually the first major launch of a Flash Player since Macromedia was acquired by Adobe. So we were able to bring in the resources from the text guys at Adobe that have 20 years of experience doing text stuff. And have them help the Flash Player team build really a great text rendering engine. So now it supports things like bidirectional text. It supports things like doing alpha changes and rotations on system fonts.
Awesome.
So a lot of things
that life much easier.
Yeah, definitely. Flex developers were continually having to embed fonts, which increases your Swift size and just is not that useful, especially when you get into internationalization and stuff. So now being able to use system fonts and be able to have all the capabilities on fonts that you have on with graphics is really helping us to build applications that work better.
Will that solve any of the printing issues that are kind of synonymous with being in the Flash Player?
This particular thing, I'm not sure if it affects printing or not. In Flash Player before 10, essentially what happened when you print something is that it turns the whole thing into a bitmap and then sends the bitmap to the printer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if in Flash Player 10 they're actually sending the font information. I believe that they are sending the vector information to the printer now in Flash Player 10, but I don't know about fonts, so that's something to look into.
What else?
So then I think the other major thing that I think affects Flex developers in Flash Player 10 is some additions to the file reference API. So file reference is the API for doing file upload and file download in Flash Player. And it was limited before Flash Player 10 in that the only way when you do an upload from Flash Player, so similar in HTML when you do an input type what is it?
File multi-part post.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for quizzing me.
Yeah, that's good. So Flash Player has an upload functionality built into Flash Player, and in Flash Player before 10, the upload had to go directly from the client to your server. There was no way to get to the bytes of the file before it went to the server. So in Flash Player 10, we now have the ability to actually read the bytes and choose whether or not those bytes actually go to the server.
Can now pull up an image and manipulate it on client side and never go to the server?
Exactly.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And then there's another addition similarly where you can do a file download without having to actually send the bytes from the server. They can come from the client. So where this is useful is things like if I generate a PDF, so there's an open source library called the Live PDF for doing PDF generation in a Flex application. So that happens client side. Rather than send the PDF up to the server and send it back down to the client, I can just send it right to the client from Flash Player. So those are two new APIs that I think are going to be really useful as well. So there's a bunch of other miscellaneous things, but I think those are the major new things in Flash Player 10.
So we would assume with that Flux 4 is targeting 10, right? And will we be seeing Flux 4 soon? And are there anything else specific to Flux 4 that should get people excited out there as that comes down the line?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So today, if you do want to take advantage of the new Flash Player 10 features that are available now, then you can go download some files from opensource.adobe.com. There's some instructions there about what you have to download to make Flex 3 work with the Flash Player 10 features. So you can take advantage of the features today, but the problem is that if you take, for instance, Flex's label component for displaying a text label, that label is going to be using the old text rendering engine, even if you've built your application for Flash Player 10. So if you've gone and followed the instructions to get Flash Player 10 support Flex Builder, label is still using Flash Player 9's old text rendering engine, even if you're running a Flash Player 10.
Interesting.
So the APIs are built against the old text components. So the new text components, to take advantage of those, you actually have to rebuild components to take advantage of the components. Flex 4 is where we're doing a lot of the work to build in the 3D effects, the 3D support, the effects, the Pixel Blender support, the new text components. So all these new features in Flash Player 10 are just going to be built into Flex 4 when Flex 4 is out. So that'll be sometime next year.
Okay. You said something interesting that I wanted to follow up on in the text updates with Flash Player 10, that this is the first release since Adobe's acquired Macromedia. Is there any other impacts that you've seen on the player or the Flex platform based on Adobe's influence now?
There's been a lot of great things that have happened. One of the things that's happened on kind of the Adobe side is that now Flash is just a major part of Acrobat 9 and Reader 9. So you can actually put Flex applications into PDFs. That's something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Some interesting use cases like BI dashboards and those sorts of things for doing that. So there's been some impact that way. Also just on Adobe's future products, next generation products like Photoshop.com, Adobe TV. A lot of Adobe's next generation products are being built with Flex and Flash Player. But as far as on actual Flex, text has been one of the great places where Adobe people have contributed, but I'm sure that I don't have a lot of details on how the engineering teams are interacting, but I'm sure that there are quite a few other places as well.
So some of the more noticeable changes may be Flash on Adobe and their uses of it, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for sharing with us about Flash Player 10, and I look forward to catching up with you next time.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks for the scotch.